All right, so welcome now to part two of this because I capped the last one as I started filming the original thing and started talking and getting more details and history out there. I started thinking, you know what, I need to cap these a little bit sooner so that this doesn't turn into some big long hour long deal because I can definitely start to ramble. So anyway, so here's where the last part picked off, or here's the part where the last one left off and starting to move into what happened after like high school and graduation and apprenticing. So anyway, yeah, if you know somebody that is getting out of high school or trying to decide if going to college or whatever for them is the right thing or not, feel free to share these with them because like I said, there were so many options I had no idea about when I was a teenager getting out of school and trying to decide what I'm doing with my life after that. So some of these may help some of them figure out some other ideas that might be temporary and could turn into a career. So anyway, back to where I left off with the other one. Here we go.
End of the summer I went back. He hadn't hired anybody, and thus began my full-time pursuit in the automotive industry as a mechanic's apprentice. Started out first week, dropped a pair of wire crimpers on the fender of a beautiful 34 Ford show car, dented it, whole thing had to be fixed and repainted. But he wanted to give me a cool just job on that first week. And at that point I'd just been working on stuff in the driveway. I've been keeping all the tools on the fender of my truck while I was working on it in the driveway, and I didn't know any different. So kind of cost him a bit of a relationship with the customer at that point, and probably needed to stay to make up for that. But even though something like that happened in the first week or so, he still put that time and trust in me to learn and to progress. And so I kept working for him, and like I said, I've just gotten out of high school, and you getting out of high school, it seems like people like to send you a congratulations card with some money in it. A lot of times I think people probably put that towards college or whatever, but I wasn't going to college. So I bought my first tool cart when the Napa guy came down with these on sale for $150. And that was the first investment I made in my post-high school education. So my parents had gotten me some tool sets and stuff while I was in high school, just some generic tools, and now I needed somewhere to start putting them so I could roll it around at work and work on these cars. Joe was very generous, and Mikey was generous to let me use their tools as I was there and starting to learn. And that kind of started creating some different experiences in my in-industry experience. I was still trying to be committed to a band that I was in at the time, and I wanted to leave work in the middle of the day to go to rehearsals. And it just got to a point where Joe sat me down and said, hey, look, I'm willing to teach you, I'm willing to give you this opportunity, but I need a full-time commitment out of you. If you want to do this, if you still want to do that, you need to change your practice times to after hours, because I need you here from, I think it was 8 to 6 or whatever at the time. And I made the decision to leave the band, focus on work, learn as much as I could in the industry, started staying after so we could hop up my truck a little bit, put a hotter ignition in it, eventually led up to wanting to put a cam in it, which spiraled into building an entire engine. He kind of put it out there that, I wanted to learn how to do it. I wanted to have that experience under my belt. But he said, if you're willing to pay for this stuff, I'll walk you through it. I'll help you do it. I've done this many times. I've got connections at the machine shop. We can get parts from Time Distributing, all these different things. And that started becoming kind of incentive for me to stay and keep learning and, then apply that on my own stuff. There was a day I remember I'd been working on something, and Joe had a handful of tools that became my go-to tools. I had a Craftsman set of tools that was maybe $150, $180 with some, decent ratchets and sockets. But he had this snap-on swivel head ratchet that I loved just using all the time. And he came out in the shop one day to work, and because he was done with stuff in the office and he was looking for that ratchet because he needed it. And he walked over and he pulled it out of my hand and he says, "All right, this is mine." He says, "I feel like you use it all the time, so that means it's time for you to buy your own." Went on the tool truck, decided I needed that same ratchet for myself. Asked him how much it was at the time, and I think this 3/8 swivel head ratchet was $130 at the time. And I about crap my pants. I was like, "Are you kidding me? That's like almost as much as my whole set." But I wanted it, and I knew that it was a lot nicer than what I had, and I use it all the time, and I think I made 3 payments to get it, and it is in the bag of tools that I take to the junkyard anytime I'm doing side jobs. 13 years later, it is one of the tools I use day in, day out. I've had to have some stuff warrantied on it. It's been taken care of, but that started, him taking that out of my hand, saying, "It's time for you to buy your own. Clearly you use mine enough that you need your own." It was kind of all right, I'm going to start investing in myself, in my future, by buying tools so that I can be more efficient at my job. And that's kind of, I guess, what I'm getting at, or one of the things I'm leading up to in this one. So my friends that were kind of laughing at me for not going to school, some of them have gone on to do some awesome things, have accomplished master's degrees, CPA certifications, all these different things. Happy for them, awesome for them. It was not what was on my agenda at the time. And my physics teacher from high school said that. He said, you're going to have friends that are going to go to school, they're going to finish school, and they're not going to know anything different, so they're just going to keep going to school. In the meantime, you're gaining real world experience, you're learning how to fix things, you're buying tools, so now, maybe you're not, got a PhD tag on your desk, but if your water heater goes out, you have the know-how and the tools to do that yourself, and you don't have to break down and pay somebody while you're still in school trying to pay to get through school. And he was right. And I don't know that I necessarily have saved all that money. My wife and I were joking about it with all the things that I fix on our own cars, that we probably saved, tens of thousands of dollars in repair shop bills because we haven't had to pay for parts and labor and all these things. I've still bought tools along the way so that I can do those things, and maybe those tens of thousands of dollars that would have been spent at the repair shop are invested in these different toolboxes that I have spread out between home and school and work and all those different places, and paint guns and sanders and ratchets and power tools and all those different things. So maybe we haven't really saved that money because it's been invested elsewhere. But then when the time comes that our dryer's screaming and the belt's shot and it needs to be pulled apart, like I know how to pull it apart, and even though I'm automotive mechanic, enough of that transfers over that I can get in there and I can fix the dryer, I can replace the belt, I can replace the motor, tension the belt, all those different things, and saved whatever couple $100 it would have cost to bring the service tech out to look at something like that. So investing in tools, investing in learning a trade, those are things that have been beneficial for us. I get home tonight, saw antifreeze leaking from under my wife's car, was able to climb under it, know what it is, don't have to put it on a tow truck, don't have to send it to the shop. I can order the part tomorrow, put it in sometime this week, and away we go. So going and working for somebody out of high school, learning a trade, learning how things work, buying tools, doing all those things, getting exposure to the industry and what different things were there, that was where I found pinstriping. That was where I started to learn about building custom cars, painting, all those things. And Joe was the one that kind of looked at me and said, "Look, like I'm a general mechanic. I got everything in here from Hondas and Audis to diesel trucks and, vintage carbureted stuff." He says, "I work on something different every day, and it's always something different. It's always a challenge. This one needs specialty tool for this one needs specialty tool for that. Sometimes this is obsolete." He says, "So the guys at the dealerships that do the same car every day, in and out, they have the tools, they do the same thing, they get really good at doing the same job over and over again, and they just turn them over and over and over again. So he looked at me and he said, you need to specialize in something. Don't do what I did. Don't just take on anything and everything. Find something that you enjoy, find something that you're passionate about, and specialize in that. And it wasn't immediately after that conversation that I decided I was going to go paint cars, but he put that in my head and I started thinking about that. So a few years later, after I'd been pinstriping for a while and I'd, just like wanting to build the engine, wanted to have that experience, wanted to have that just satisfaction of saying, I built that, and then I drove that truck, went and raced that truck, did all these things with the motor that I built that I was proud of. Then came the day that I wanted to paint a car. Joe didn't paint cars, but Joe knew somebody who painted cars. So he brought down Monty, and Monty and I become good friends. And Monty was willing to take the time to show me how to prep the vehicle to paint it. He came down on his own time, and we went to Keystone, and I bought a gallon kit of white single stage to paint my Jetta, because I was past the point of wanting to just spray paint my cars in the front yard. And he took that time, invested that time and knowledge from what his experience was, so that I could accomplish something that I wanted to. And then that spiraled into, now I started having people asking me to paint some motorcycle parts or tanks or whatever. And then it was just kind of like, what, I enjoy this. And later, after I was going to school and wasn't loving sitting at a desk doing accounting and business type stuff that I'd gotten a degree in, I was at a point where I decided to make that change to now finish a 4-year degree while doing a trade program. And that was when I started to focus on body and paint. So, takeaways from this, I guess, are, if you don't know what you want to do right out of high school, if you haven't been to a job fair or gone somewhere to see what's out there, don't feel like you just have to make a decision and that's the rest of your life, because I chose and started over and finally found what I enjoyed. Would it have been better if I'd found it right out of the gate and moved up quicker and started making more money sooner? You bet. But at that time in my life, learning the trade, learning all those different things in preparation leading up to those other things was where I needed to be and what was important to me at that time. And I feel like I probably thrived and enjoyed things working in the mechanic shop in ways that I never did in high school. No classes really, I had classes I enjoyed, but nothing had really grabbed my attention or pulled me in one way or the other. And this did. And so, maybe my dad didn't want me to be a mechanic while I was in high school, and he saw more potential to like go to a 4-year school and get a full ride scholarship, but I didn't play my cards in for that hand. I didn't whatever. I didn't play my cards that way. But now, when my dad needs his car worked on, if he can't get it in at the mechanic shop, he can call me. Or when we're on the houseboat at Lake Powell and, something goes wrong, somebody that he lined up with that connection is able to help him, because that's not what my dad does. So if you don't know what you want to do yet, if you haven't been exposed to it or like had that something that just piqued your interest, don't be afraid to just get a job somewhere with something that kind of interests you. I think with that I mentioned early on, I feel like there had been kind of a negative stereotype that had been there in my life at some point, where I thought like mechanics were, not that smart or not that like creative. Like, oh my gosh, you spend a week in the industry and you realize just how much you have to know, how much you have to have invested in tools, whether it's diagnostic equipment or brand specific tools or all these different things, to pinpoint a problem, to know what it is, to diagnose it, to replace the right part, to know how to put it in correctly, to adjust it if it needs adjustment, or to recalibrate it with, a scanner, or all these different things that people just that come in to pay that repair bill don't know. I mean, those are some of the greatest guys out there, like, that can problem solve and fix it. And that's one thing that I just love about this industry is, having something come in, having the people not know what's wrong with their car, not know exactly what they want in the custom side of things, and then you produce a finished product, whether it's you diagnosed it, fixed it, got it back to them, and then it's safe for them to drive again, or they come in and they have kind of an idea of how they want to restore the car that's been in the family forever, and you and the team present different ideas, combinations of parts and stuff, and you present it in a way that now it's like, okay, we're going to take what's great about it and we're going to improve this, and we're going to keep this kind of in memory of whatever you had here, but then we're going to pull this old engine out and we're going to make it handle like a modern Corvette, and being able to produce a finished product and see the excitement that comes to these people from that, the satisfaction, and just that in here for me is something that sitting at a desk crunching numbers didn't do for me. And we'll talk more about that because, we're still going to talk about going to a trade program. We're still going to talk about going to a 4-year college, because those are also things that I did that all have kind of come together for the situation I'm in now. But it all started out with getting a job at the family mechanics shop out of high school. Started as a Boy Scout learning about cars and wanting to do something like what the neighbors' cool cars and trucks had, wanting to be part of that, have something like that of my own. And yeah, so Joe pointed me in that direction of specializing in something. Going to UVU later was a huge opportunity for me in many ways, and we'll talk about that. But in the spirit of their car show this week and still supporting that program, those are some things that just started leading me in that direction and getting me to the point that I'm at. And I mean, I still have so much to learn and improve on, but being able to look back now and wanting to at least put that out there for somebody that might be graduating in the next month or so here from either high school or even a trade program or a 4-year university that's trying to figure out what's next. These are some things that you can just be thinking about, because you just never know where you start something that might be way more appealing than you would have thought at first, that might actually be a lot more fulfilling for you, and you go home at the end of the day excited that you were able to take something from start to finish and see that for yourself, do that with your hands, work with your hands and fix something. It just, there's nothing else like it. So anyway, I'm sure there's some things I forgot, but as I've been messing around with these and learning to edit more, I know how to put it in later. So we'll figure that out. But anyway, thanks for listening to my ramblings about going and being an apprentice in an industry and how it's changed my life so far. So anyway, have a good night, and we'll probably be back next week, a little sooner than normal. So anyway, thanks.